Many years ago, our nation was divided into four different tribes: the Ahai tribe, the Wenua tribe, the Wei tribe, and the Hao tribe. Two on the northern island, Wei and Hao, and two on the southern, Ahai and Wenua. All the sects hated each other because they thought that their chief was the greatest chieftain. Toa, the son of the chief of the Ahai tribe, was soon to be appointed as chief, since his father was aging and becoming unfit for leading. Toa had dreamed of this coming day since he was a boy, and had great thoughts of what kind of chief he would be when he ruled. He would be strong and fierce and would reunite the other tribes with his great rule because of how mighty he was, and he would strike fear into those who dared to disagree with his views. One day, as he was on a walk through the forest, daydreaming of a time as ruler, he heard a rustle in the bushes and pulled his spear in front of him. An old hag of a woman emerged from the bushes, so Toa lowered her spear, for she was not a threat. He asked who she was and what she was doing by herself in the woods. She responded by telling him the great spirits told her she needed to be on his path, for there she would run into the next great chief of all the islands. She said that the spirits had a message for him, that there was a great monster coming to consume all the tribes and all the light from the world in exactly 1 month on the summer solstice, and that he was the only one who could stop it. But he needed the tribes to join together in harmony once again. Upon finishing relaying the message, the mysterious hag disappeared without a trace. Toa ran back to the chief's home as fast as he could and told his father of the encounter. He told his father that he needed to send for the chiefs of the other tribes immediately, to warn them of the coming danger. Upon hearing the news, the father laughed and laughed. How could his own son be so foolish to believe some old hag in the woods? The father gave Toa a challenge. If he could go to all the other tribes and convince their leader of this threat and bring them to him, then he might believe the story and would deal with it then. Taking this challenge to heart, Toa packed up his things and headed out of the village of the Wenua tribe. When he arrived at the village, he was met with hostility, but being a clever man, he had planned for this and had brought an offering of arue, a sample food from a vine, that the Wenua tribe valued above all foods because it comes from a sturdy, mighty ground. This gift granted him a meeting with their chief Mangua. Toa told Mangua of the dangers the oracle spoke of, and the Mangua laughed at him just like his father. Mangua, however, saw this as a prospect for entertainment. So Mangua, great chief of the Wenua, proclaimed, "I will assist you on this quest if you complete a simple task for me. Our sacred mountain, Rapatua, is angry and soon will spew destruction across our land. Your task is to travel to the top of this mountain and stop it by picking the white flower, then bringing the flower to us." Toa accepted this task and traveled to the nearby mountain. After a day of climbing and walking, Toa reached the top of the mountain and could feel the heat of its rage boiling under the surface. Peering into the crater of the center of the mountain, he saw red-hot material slowly moving deep down, illuminating a single white flower on the inside of the crater. Toa reached as far as he could, but the elusive plant was barely out of reach. Toa thought for a minute and took the opportunity for a brief rest on the edge of the mountain. As he sat and thought, he felt a brief wind brush against him. Upon opening his eyes, Toa found a large bird sitting across from him. Looking into his eyes as he looked into its, between the two there was an indecisive, natural understanding that the flower was important for every living thing on the island. The bird took to the sky and dove into the mouth of the mountain, emerging moments later with the white flower in its beak, which it dropped into the hands of Toa. When the flower was plucked, the boiling material in the mountain cooled and ceased moving as he could almost swear he heard a word of gratitude from the mountain. After this, Toa made his way back to the Wenua tribe, where he presented the flower to Chief Mangua, proclaimed to the tribe, "This was a feat of pure bravery and skill. For your troubles, we will join you in your quest to defeat this great monster. When will our service be required?" Toa told him to meet him at the place of Ahai in the summer solstice, and to bid them farewell. After leaving the Wenua tribe behind, Toa made his way to the Hao people to recruit them. Upon arrival to the Hao village, Toa was again met with hostility until he explained his purpose. The people of the Hao tribe laughed at him and thought their chief would enjoy the story as well, so he brought out Wakua, the chief of the tribe, enjoyed the story indeed at the expense of Toa. Shouting over the laughter, Toa explained that the Whenua tribe have already agreed to help him in exchange for a task he has to accomplish. At this, Wakua paused and considered that perhaps he could play Toa entertainment as well. So Wakua proclaimed, "Listen, well, for I too have a task for you to complete. You must travel into the dense forest and cut down a tree taller, which bears a blue ring. The catch is you must fell this tree without the use of your hands." Toa agreed to these terms and voluntarily had his hands bound to tribesmen. "To ensure that the task is complete, my aide shall go with you," finished Wakua, sending his aide forth. Toa and the chief's aide traveled deep into the forest until they eventually found the tree that bears blue ring around its base. This tree was massive and would take a long while to chop down even with the use of one's hands. Toa pondered his quest for some time while the aide stood nearby silently. Toa thought and thought about how to solve this problem and was deep into meditation when he felt the wind picking up. So he opened his eyes and got his bearings for a moment, at which time the wind stopped completely. Puzzled, Toa closed his eyes and meditated again, this time asking the wind to push against him. The wind, in answer, pushed against him. Still with his eyes closed, he asked it to stop, and it stopped. Toa, pleased, then urged the wind to cut down the tree for him, as he could not alone. In response, the wind picked up drastically, so much that the aide became frightened and frantic. Toa urged the wind harder and harder until he heard a great snap from the base of the blue-ringed tree, followed by a loud crashing sound as it fell to the ground. The wind then died down so the air was still again, with only the one cut tree. The entire way back, Wakua's aide questioned Toa about what he did and how he did it, to which Toa told him that he asked the wind for a favor, and the wind provided. Upon reaching the village, the aide rushed to the chief and excitedly explained how Toa completed the task. Toa's hands were unbound, and he was granted the assistance of the Hau tribe on the day of the summer solstice. As the aid of the chief was greatly trusted, with his task completed and the alliance of the Hau cemented, Toa continued his adventures to the final destination, the Wei tribe. Toa brought fruits as a peace offering to the Wei tribe, and was welcomed as a visitor into their village. He then requested an audience with the chief to relay his message and quest to her. Tewei, unlike the other chiefs, took this news very gravely and seriously, which was a surprise to Toa. To him she said, "Humble hero, I will join you, but only if you prove yourself to be a person worthy of following. You understand that we cannot send our people under a poor leader and a hero just to die unlessonly. For your task, I will have you retrieve a lost idol of the water goddess, Moana, from the deep drop of our shore." Toa accepted. Toa was led to the deep drop into the water by a few of the locals, and from there was led to his own devices. Toa filled his lungs and dove down and down until he felt the bottom. By then he felt his lungs growing strained and could not see the idol. He shot up to take a breath and gasped in air until his lungs were again full and dove down again. Still he did not find anything on the sandy bottom and had to come up for air once more. Toa was becoming dreadful by the third time he filled his lungs and dove down. He again reached the bottom and felt around, looking for the idol until he ran out of air. Toa again went up for air. Upon reaching the surface, he was surprised to see that something in the corner of his eye that was not there before. Lodged into the soft sand, gently submerged to his side, was the idol of Moana. Knowing this could have only worked of the gods of stone, cannot float on his own, he gave thanks and came ashore. Toa walked back to the Wei tribe and presented the idol to Tewei. Tewei gave thanks, saying, "My tribesmen tell me you have a great favor of the gods. If this is the truth, we fare a good chance against what is coming for our land and people. We will join your fight." So Toa gave thanks and told them to meet in the Ahai territory on the summer solstice, which was rapidly approaching. Upon completing his third and final quest, he journeyed back home to tell his father the great news of all the tribes joining his cause. Once he reached his home village of Ahai, he went straight to his father's home and started relaying all the exact journeys he had, and saying he had recruited all the warriors and chiefs of the other tribes by completing challenging tasks. His father listened intensely, and once Toa finished his tale, the father responded by saying that he was a lovely little tale that he had weaved, but he still wouldn't believe it until he sees the other chiefs on the summer solstice. 3 more days passed while waiting for the summer solstice and the reunion of the tribes. Finally the day came, but no one seemed to show up. The father started to laugh and tell Toa that he shouldn't feel too bad because the other tribes were never to be trusted, and it would have been an act of the gods to bring them all here. As if he summoned them with that statement, the chiefs of all the other tribes came forward out of the bay into the light near the wooded area. The reunion was tense as the tribes still harbored a hatred for each other, but they tried to settle the differences for the sake of the danger to come. The chiefs started to talk to one another to reminisce about old battles. The father pulled Toa aside and said that he was proud of his son for bringing all the tribes together, as he had now accomplished the task that the father has always wanted to do, but never could because of the curse that was placed on him as a young man. Toa was very confused because he had never heard of this curse his father spoke of. Toa asked his father what the curse was, and his father winked and said that it was better to show him. His father backed away from Toa and started to glow a deep red, almost as if his insides were on fire. He almost started to grow in stature and in girth. His clothes started to rip and his hands and feet started turning into vicious claws. He continued to grow and transform until he was larger than any surrounding tree. Upon completion of his transformation, he blew fire from his mouth and roared a great and fierce roar. This oblivion got the attention from all the other tribes, and Toa was in shock. He had always viewed his father as a great man, not as a monster, but that it was exactly who he was. The monster started to charge at the tribes. He said that he had dreamed of this moment for his whole life, when he could finally bring an end to the other tribes, and would be the ruler of the great 2 islands. Toa realized that he had the same dream, but not like this. The other tribes were also people, and good people that just wanted to protect their own by stopping the great mountain, by getting the blue ring of the tree, which was a medicine for the elders of the tribe needed, or by retrieving the hope of the people who found the idol of Moana. If he was to be a great chief, that is exactly what he needed to do. He needed to care about his people and protect and provide for them. He understood that in order to do that, he needed to defeat his father. He asked for help from the wind once again to lift him up to get on top of the beast, and the wind obliged him. He rose with the air and landed on the neck of the great monster, and went to cut its throat, but the beast's skin was too thick for his spear to pierce. This seemed to agitate the great monster, so he swung around and threw Toa from the top of him to stop this attack. The beast saw that it was Toa trying to stop him, and was filled with a great sadness for a moment, because it was his own son. But his determination to destroy the tribes won over, and he returned once again to his attack. The other tribes had come to arms and were trying to stab the monster with their spears, but it was not working. The beast was breathing fire and burning and eating many of the men. They seemed to be losing the battle, and that's when Toa remembered that the help he received from the sea, and knew that water could defeat the fire of the beast. Asked once again for help from the wind to bring him up to the beast. He reached ahead of the monster and grabbed the horns that were protruding and used them to turn the beast towards the sea. The monster struggled against this, but Toa did not relent. He forced the beast to the water's edge and asked help from the sea to defeat this beast, and the water responded with a giant tidal wave that overtook both the monster and Toa. Toa watched as the water took his father down to the depths and the fire in the chest slowly burnt out. The water then pushed Toa back to the surface, where his bird friend was waiting to bring him back to dry land. Toa fell to the ground, gasping for breath and sobbing at the loss of his father. The people from all 4 tribes ran to him and hoisted him into the air as their victor. Toa was so overwhelmed by this that such a wide range of emotions were flowing through him. There was great feast and celebration that followed, as the tribes were finally able to commune together in peace. Toa had to remove himself from the festivities, for he was still in grief from the loss of his father. He went on another walk through the forest and happened upon the oracle once again. He asked the oracle if she knew that the monster was his father the whole time. She said she did, but she knew that it had to happen this way for all the tribes to join together once again, and that he was to be chief of them all. That the test he endured would cause him to be great and understanding chief. He returned to the celebration and met with the other chiefs to discuss a new order of rule, and they all agreed that he would be the great chieftain of them all, but the current chiefs would not be his liaisons, and that they could all walk together in peace. Toa would rule the great nation for the rest of his days, and will always be remembered as a legendary hobbit that brought peace to the nation. As read by Betty White.